Chapter 3. Late one afternoon, 4 years later, a band of gypsies strangled down the narrow lane past the house, going toward the marketplace, and Magda came to the doorway to watch them, black-haired, dark-skinned. They walked lightly in the summer sunlight, flashing white smiles and dark eyes at each other and at the people of the town who looked out of doorways to see them pass. Magda smiled. Patched clothing and dirty hair, tinkling bell bracelets on the ankles of the women, jangling utensils hanging at the horses' saddles, ruddy-nosed children, and tall, handsome men, and hollow-cheeked women with ring-laden fingers of the scent in the air. As they passed unwashed bodies and sweating horses and the meadow of flowers, they must have slept among last night. Magda sighed, longing for one thoughtless moment to run out on the street and join them. And then she felt small hands tugging at her skirt, and looked down the dark-haired 4-year-old boy beside her. What is it, Dracula? Who are those people? They are called Pharaoh's people. It is thought they came from a country called Egypt, long, long ago. She looked fondly at the little boy. Now what could make her want to run away with the gypsies and leave her 2 little sons, even for a moment? She sighed again. Sometimes she had strange yearnings she didn't understand. Can I go out and play with them? Dracula pleaded. Magda shook her head. No, of course not. You can't play with gypsies. And then, seeing his puzzled look, she added, besides, they're only passing through town. They won't be here long. The women and children will sell flowers in the marketplace. The men will go from house to house, looking for little jobs to do, or selling trinkets they've stolen in the last town they stopped in. She turned away from the door reluctantly, guiding her son away with her. Imagine wanting to go with that irresponsible lot. She had so many duties here, with 2 sons, and a husband who was to be Prince of Wallachia, and another child inside her that would soon be born. But she had been feeling so sick lately. Perhaps that was why these unusual moods came over her so often. She smiled to herself. It was fun even to think about trying to keep up with a band of wandering gypsies as big and clumsy as she was now. She sat down heavily in the chair by a window and took up the shirt she was sewing for her youngest son. There was still enough light to finish the tail of the dragon. She was embroidering so that little Dracula could wear his father's insignia. "Where is your brother?" she asked him. "Outside, helping Isidore in the stables." Mercia loved horses, and he spent much of his time with Isidore, master of Lord Dracula's stables. Magna nodded. That was all right. Isidore took good care of 6-year-old Myceria. He was teaching him to ride as a surprise for his father when he returned. "Then you stay and keep me company," she told Dracula, knowing that he always preferred to be with her anyway. The child sat by the hearth, contentedly playing with a wooden toy, and Magna made her tiny stitches carefully and wondered how her husband was. He had been gone for a month on a trip to Moldavia, a neighboring principality, to try to win the support of the two princes of Moldavia in the struggle to take the Valentian throne away from his half-brother, Alexandru Aldea. She wondered how much longer he would be away. When this new baby boy be born while he was gone, as Dracula had been, she hoped he would be home soon, tonight, perhaps, or tomorrow. She had been feeling so sick and seemed to be getting worse. Sometimes she couldn't even get out of bed. The illness was so bad. After supper, while her two little boys were upstairs getting ready for bed, Magda unlatched the front door again and stood in the doorway looking out into the street where the gypsies had passed earlier that day. There was no sign of them now, of course. They would long ago have made camp somewhere outside the walls of Cyasora. Perhaps were now roasting their evening meal over open fires. She could picture them as she had seen them many times, dancing in the firelight to the plaintive music of the string instruments, singing their songs of distant hills and strange lands, of love and hate and broken hearts. The misty Transylvanian night swirled around her. She shivered and closed the door, bolting it securely against the darkness, and then through the quiet house, candle in hand, to the upstairs sleeping room where her sons were waiting. "Will you sleep on our bed with us tonight?" Dracula had asked her as he kissed her. "I will, if Marcia will move over to make room for me." Marcia smiled at her sleepily and made a place in the bed for her as she put out the candle and took off her outer clothes, leaving on her stockings and petticoat and her chamois skirt. Moonlight filtered into the room through the narrow window, and somewhere an animal howled. She put an arm around Marcia and the other around Dracula, and the children snuggled up against her. For a while, there were only the sound of their breathing in the darkness, and Magna, feeling fear and loneliness creeping over her again, tried to think of the gypsies laughing and singing together over their warm night fire. "What are those lights?" Dracula asked suddenly. Magda opened her eyes. In the faint ray of light across the room, there were specks that glowed and shimmered, as big as the eyes of a cat, appearing and then disappearing. She shivered in spite of herself. "Anna says, when we see strange lights and hear something howling, vampires are close by," Marcia said. "What's vampires?" Dracula sounded interested. "I don't know," Marcia said. "What's vampires, Mother?" Magna tried to remember stories she had heard years ago of strange, foul creatures. Then she remembered and crossed herself, and feeling for the forehead of each of her sons in turn, she traced a small cross on each with her thumb. "Why are you doing that, Mother?" "Because vampires are wicked creatures that come from the devil, and the cross will keep them away." "But what are they?" Dracula coaxed her. "They are people who have died but are not dead. They stay alive by sucking the blood from other people, and they can turn those people into vampires like themselves. Have you ever seen one?" "I don't think so," Magna said, drawing the covers tighter around them. "But when I was a girl, a little older than you two, I heard about vampires they found in the graveyard. He was a young man who had a fit one day and died. They put him in his coffin in the underground crypt, but his brothers and sisters swore he was still alive. They said they had seen him wandering around their house, so they opened the coffin and found him lying in a pool of blood, with blood all over his mouth and hands." Marcia made a disgusted noise. "Why do vampires have to drink blood? Why don't they just eat food?" "Because blood is a life force in all of us." "But if the man was alive again, why was he in his coffin?" Marcia asked. "A vampire sleeps in his coffin in the daylight and comes out to drink blood at night. I wouldn't let a vampire drink my blood," Marcia said positively. "If I met one, I'd run away. You may not recognize it if you did see one. They say a vampire can appear as a bat, as a mist, or as tiny spots of light, or as a wolf. Maceda's voice was small and frightened. Is that a vampire over there? In those spots of light? I'm sure it isn't. It's only the moonlight falling on the water in the wash basin. There are no vampires near us. She kept her voice soothing. Don't be frightened, children. Had to know the dangers that surround them. The world was so full of mysteries, and life was a perilous journey to dark places. You both should be asleep now, she said. She sang to them softly, until the little fingers that held hers so tightly had relaxed in sleep. In the morning she was very ill. Marcia and Dracula were taken away by Anna, who sent a servant girl to bring Maria the midwife to nurse her. Magda could hear them bustling around her, talking in low tones, but the fever distorted her senses so that the heavy-boned Maria bending over her with cold cloths for her forehead seemed sometimes to be Vlad, her husband, sometimes her mother, sometimes a stranger. Once in a while her mind would clear and she heard bits of conversation with Maria and Anna. Hardly more than a child. Nothing we can do to save her. But the baby's so near coming, and she's so torn with fever. The words meant nothing to her. They were only words, and pain preoccupied her, pain that had crushed her body under its weight, until she lapsed into feverish sleep. She did not know how long she slept, but she was awake now, and there was a stranger in the room with her. She could see the ragged scarlet skirt and the yellow sash around the thin waist, and the bare feet under the skirt, the ankle bound with a bracelet of silver bells. Magda struggled to sit up. Her eyelids felt so heavy. It was an effort to keep them open, but she propped herself weakly against the pillow and saw the old gypsy woman standing beside her. The woman's black eyes studied her behind wisps of white hair that strangled on her forehead and bony cheeks. Silver hoops pierced her ears. Her gnarled fingers reached out to touch Magda's face. Lie back, my child. Her voice was strong and loud in the quiet room. Maria came forward, her pleated white shirt rustling. The gypsies have medicines, madame, to heal your sickness. Magda smiled. She hadn't been able to follow the gypsies, so they had come to take her with them. I can't go without saying goodbye to my sons, she said, and my husband. Her eyes closed. They were so heavy. The gypsy's hand smoothed her black hair back from her face. It felt cool and bartender. "I have herbs that will make you feel better." "Good," Magda said. "I can take them now before we leave." "What is she saying?" Maria's voice. "The fever is talking," the gypsy woman said. "Bring me hot water to brew the potion for her." Magda felt the hands leave her face, but she knew the woman would be back to help her up, out of the bed. They would go down the street together, slowly, because the woman was old, and Magda was not well enough yet to move quickly. They would find the other gypsies in the marketplace, perhaps, or in a meadow outside the walls. There would be laughter and singing, and they would lie on the soft grass under the stars. And then they would travel away, far away. The weight of pain pressed on her again, intensifying gradually until she cried out for it to stop. Now someone was telling her to drink a hot, bitter liquid that burned her mouth. She drank all of it and slept again, a deep sleep without dreams. A child was crying. It sounded like Dracula, just outside the door. Then she heard Marcia's voice. "Go away! She doesn't want to see you." She couldn't get out of bed. She was too weak. And so she tried to call to them, to tell them both to come in and stay with her. But her voice was so faint, they didn't hear her. And so she had to listen helplessly. "Why can't I see her?" Dracula's plaintive wail. "She only wants to see me because I am older. You just bother her." "No!" Magnet tried to shout it, but it was only a whisper. She heard Dracula going away then, sobbing as though his heart would break. And in a few moments, Lucia opened the door and came in. "Mother?" He came to her bedside and took her hand, seeing that her eyes were open. "Can I get you something to eat?" She shook her head weakly. "Get Anna and bring her here," she whispered. He looked frightened as he left. She would tell Anna to comfort Dracula. If only she weren't so weak. She could feel death in her bones, in her depths. She knew, but she had to know that her little boy would be loved and well cared for after she went. And then she could let herself slip away. She closed her eyes and prayed that they would be protected. Anna came hurrying into the room, Marcia behind her. Magna gathered all her strength, and as Anna bent to hear her, she said, "Where is Dracula? outside in the garden, my lady.